What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Kentucky Derby update. It's weird you and I being on the show and I open the show and do the controls. I just wanted to say that first. That was strange.
I love it. It's amazing. It's the only time I'm ever pretty much on the show that I'm able to just sit here. So
yeah, you sit back, relax. I'll take care of everything. How about that?
Well, you know what? It's been a good weekend, and we're back, and I'm still not fully rested. So yeah, I don't know. My blinker's off Thursday. I should be better, but yeah, for now, I think you got this.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, we've got a lot of two people in the chat right now that are very excited. We'll do the shake first. We'll get the fantasy league stuff out of the way first, and then we will go on and do a little bit of a Kentucky Derby update. Yeah, listen, I've got the random generator up. It hasn't been seen in a while. We haven't had a lot of shakes. We're going to have one here. We've got a 4-way shake today, Jared, for Mandarin Hero. So Dan and Michael, Shoddy and Davey, Vinny and Geist, all four want Mandarin Hero. So Dan and Michael's going to be 1, Shoddy and Davey 2, Vinny 3, and Geist 4. All right, so let's do this first. Let's get this going. I'm just going to punch it to show you it is changing numbers. All right.
My favorite time of the year whenever you have this generator out. All right.
Okay. Remember, Dan and Michael 1, Shoddy Davey 2, Vinny 3, Geist 4. Here it is. This is the official one. Are you ready?
Do it.
1. Dan and Michael. Dan and Michael has gotten Mandarin Hero. They will drop Classic Car Wash, a horse that did no running at Keeneland this weekend. So let's talk about this one first. Mandarin Hero goes to Dan and Michael. Classic Car Wash, the horse that was dropped. What were your thoughts of Mandarin Hero?
Honestly, I mean, at the time, it was like, that's embarrassing. Like, I can't believe that horse beat Practical Move. And then, the numbers came back fairly strong. I think it's kind of twofold. Do I think he's a threat to win the Derby? No, but did it set up nicely for what I believe is kind of opening the door for these Japanese runners? Yes. I think it only made me feel more scared about my Dermo Sochigaki can't winning the Derby, because listen, I don't know the horse's name. I can't remember it, but this horse that Mandarin Hero got beat by a horse who Derma smoked. And and I know we're like trying to figure out like, okay, which Japanese horses are the best, and these ones have been running against weaker competition. I think that's it. When you put it in terms like that, it kind of gives you an idea like of over here. It's like, okay, well, this horse beat this horse, and that horse couldn't beat that one. So, if anything, I thought he ran well. He probably should have won. I thought Practical Move was like dying for the wire. So listen, I don't necessarily hate the claim, because they have said basically we're staying over here for the foreseeable future. Definitely going to run in either or Derby or Preakness. If they get in the Derby, I imagine they'll run in the Preakness. They might run all 3 legs, honestly. So I think for that reason, you're at least, it's a 20 point claim, and you're probably getting 30 back if you're lucky.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a little bit of both. I think Mandarin Hero ran extremely well, and I also think we got Practical Move kind of got exposed a little bit. We kind of know what Skinner is at this point, so I don't know. I think it's a good claim because, like you said, I do think they're going to run a lot. They're very excited to be here. They're very excited to run in the race. So good claim there. We'll go ahead and just keep talking about the Santa Ana Derby. What do you think of that statement I just made? Practical Move. I think it was more if he got exposed versus Mandarin Hero ran this incredible race.
Yeah, Nick said it, and I agree.
Yep.
I think they were coming home slow. Yep. He was dying for the wire. Like I mentioned, if Mandarin Hero doesn't have. By the way, he keeps getting these perfect trips. Yep. Practical Move. I mean, it's not. I don't want to take anything away about a horse that's continued to win out west, but Go Rocket Ride scratches the morning of. I don't know about you, but the more I've looked at this race, the more I've kind of digested it. Like, I think Go Rocket Ride would have won fairly easily, and just because the rest of those that were not impressive whatsoever. So he's gotten that. He keeps getting like favorable situations, and Mandarin Hero doesn't get kind of stopped behind him and finally gets room to run. He's beating him. And really, it's as simple as that. And I just don't think that race is a lot. I don't want anything to do. If I don't want anything to do with Practical Move in the Derby, then I really don't want anything to do with the other two, or even want to throw in National Treasure.
That's
Anything with those.
That's where my problem is with it. It just seemed like starting to slow down. And the further they went, the you saw that burst, right? That you saw in that mile and 16th race, but they just didn't come home as fast as they did in that mile and 16th race for Practical Move. I'm with you. If Go Rocket Ride would have improved second time going long, second time against winners, usually horses do. You never really know, but usually they do. I think he probably would have gotten the job done. Hard to tell, though. Also a very fast pace. Who knows if he would have been involved in that as well. Yeah. So I think
and the other thing, too, is that 4, and I don't know the name. I mean, that's how bad the horse is, right? I don't even remember the horse's name.
Yeah, Vermilion. Yeah,
and he's like a sprinter, He's not even that great of a horse, and he's right there. I mean, it wasn't like, he got beat, but he was still right kind of there in the mix when they hit the wire. I mean, he's behind by a pack of horses, but, like, you would have thought they would have just pulled away.
I'm with you. I was not impressed. I just wasn't. And I think Practical Move might be one of the better horses from a talent perspective. I think if the Derby was at a mile and a 16th, I think he'd be really, really tough to beat. I just think as that extra eighth of a mile, it's just not going to help him. And look, if you don't have those concerns and you're just looking at, hey, he got 100 buyer and I think he'll be the one to beat in the Kentucky Derby, go for it. I'm not here to talk you off the horse. I'm just saying he's not for me in the Kentucky Derby. Is he for me down the road? Maybe. He's a good horse. I'm not saying he's not, but in the Kentucky Derby, he's not for me. Any final thoughts on that? Or do you want to go on to the other one?
Yeah, no, I think unfortunately, like I mentioned with Go Rocket Ride, scratching, like I feel like we didn't learn a whole lot from the race. The only thing I did learn is I'm not going to have Practical Move anywhere on my tickets. I think and on top of that, like I don't want to say he's a bad horse. It's just based off of what I saw, based off he's a horse that's back-to-back wins in greatest stakes races and prep races. He's going to be bad, right, in the Derby, and I just don't think he's going to be way over bet for me. If he's 15-1, I might consider him, but he's not going to be 15-1.
Yeah, that's the problem right there. Exactly, his price is going to be pretty good, pretty darn good, or pretty darn low, I should say. So, what can you really do? I mean, it's one of those things. If you're going to back him, you're going to have to back him at 6 or 8-1, and I think that's the scary part. One other claim to announce: Vinny claimed Sun Thunder and dropped determinedly. So Sun Thunder goes to Vinny. It's a whatever claim. I don't really know what you're going to get out of him as far as the Kentucky Derby goes, but he did run in the Bluegrass Stakes, and that will be a good transition to the Bluegrass Stakes. We'll update that. We were there live and in person. It was so much fun to watch that race live and in person. Tappa Trice gets the job done over Verifying. They were well clear of everybody else for third. You own Tappa Trice in Fantasy League, so we'll just go right to you. What did you think of Tappa Trice on Saturday?
It was an unbelievable couple hours there because my bets really struggled for most of the day there, and then of course having him. Okay, what?
I want a blue, and I'm trying to get blue. But...
Okay, he wants a blue. There you go. Okay,
awesome.
Oh, Easter candy.
There you go.
Yeah, we have enough. I needed that something to happen, going towards my favor there in that race. And whenever they turned for home, I thought, we've got this. And then Verifying kind of battled back and really made a really nice performance. But listen, I think this horse is a monster, Tappa Trice. I think he's the best horse in the crop. Now, he's goofy. He's got issues still. He's green. He's got, I think we're seeing like 60-70% of him, I think of his skill level. I saw a stat that he actually ran, he actually had 15 less strides than Verifying did in that race.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. 15 less strides than the horse that finished right next to him had. He had a worse trip. He had to go. He started inside, then he kind of got pushed up into horses there because he Sias has to ride him out. I mean, this horse is never going to be fast out of the gate. That's the thing. That's what the issue is with him. He's going to have a good draw in the Derby for you to feel confident with him. But like I said on Twitter, like I've been saying to anyone, if he's in the same spot, say third place or so on the outside of horses in the Kentucky Derby in the far turn, how are you going to hold him off?
You're probably not. I think he's definitely the strongest closer once he gets into that stretch. I think they'll have a really good or really tough time to kind of hold him off. The problem is going to be, I really think, and I know he drew the rail and it ended up working out, but you kind of saw it. He had to check. He got in some trouble. They needed to get him outside. You could tell they really wanted to get him outside. If you draw the rail with 19 to your outside, or even draw like the 4, the 5, the 6, I think he's in some trouble. I don't think he's nimble enough to get shut off, get way back, and then make that move. But if he draws that outside or one of those outside posts, I think he's going to be really dangerous in the Derby. And you saw it in the Bluegrass. They didn't really mind taking him wide. That wasn't a problem. They didn't try to save any ground in that race. He just rode him like the best horse. The big move and the big key, and why I think he can win the Derby now, the move from about 7th to 3rd up the backside. And he didn't really ask him to do much. He just went up there on his own, sat in 3rd, waited until the jockey told him to go again, and then went again. That's the kind of stuff that a horse coming from further behind in the Derby is going to have to do. They're going to have to be able to make multiple moves. You don't see it very often where a horse, and again, people are going to say, well, Rich Strike, well, he's 1 in 100 where you can come from dead last and make one huge move. Usually if you're behind, you got to kind of make your moves and pick your spots. He can do that. So I think he's extremely dangerous in here. And I've been telling people, and I kind of heard Mike Somich and the Magic Mike guys go, well, he only won that race because Verifying didn't want 1 mile and 1/8. I don't know if I really agree with that. I think Verifying fired the best race he possibly could. I think he just got ran down by Tapit Trice. What were your thoughts on Verifying?
He impressed me for sure. I mean, they obviously were miles ahead of everybody else. They pulled away. I thought he ran an incredible race. You look at that race without either one of them in it, and the winner of this race, you're thinking, oh my gosh, this horse just won by 6, 8, whatever it was. I thought he ran a huge race. And, we talked a lot about him going into the race because we thought, well, you know what? Maybe he's not going to be on the lead the whole way around, but when they turn for home, he's going to be in the lead. And Tapit Trice is going to have to run him down. And that's exactly how it played out. I thought it was a gutty effort. I think he's a solid horse. He's been kind of prone to have those big races and then just be awful at times as well. So I think he's a good horse. I don't think he wants to necessarily go 1.25 miles in the Kentucky Derby, but I mean, listen, he kind of had a measure. I mean, he got up and then he kind of stopped and ran with him. And then when they came a little closer, he got up, and you made mention of that in the turn, on the back stretch before they got in the turn. But one nice thing about that was I thought that Tapit Trice kind of looked like he did a lot of it on his own. Mm-hmm. You weren't, whereas you go look at the Tampa Bay Derby, I mean, it's like Sias is the whole time pumping to get this horse. Well, if you watch that move that you mentioned from the 7th to the 3rd, he had him a little bit, Tapit kind of did that up on his own, which gives you some sort of sign or some sort of positive indication that maybe he is starting to figure it out a little bit. Now, granted, he's still got some growing to do. But to be in that position, like you mentioned this at the race, you're like, if he would have, or if they tried, or however you want to phrase it, to run like he did in the Tampa Bay Derby, he was never going to win. Yep. Because Verifying would have just ran. I mean, he would have got second, and it would have been like Verifying 3 back. Here's Cap. It's like then you have the whole like, oh, imagine if he would have been closer or whatever. But the fact that he was able to get into the race, like you mentioned, into the turn, and then kind of have that grind, long striding move home, that was able to won him the race. And that's what it's going to take to win the Kentucky Derby.
You hit it right on the head, and you're right. When you get it, that's why it's so difficult for closers to win multiple races in a row. And when they do, they're really, really just freaks of horses, because you get a horse like Verifying, you got the perfect trip. He just stalked that cheap speed. He made the first move, and he rounds the corner, and he's ahead of everybody, and he's full of run. If you're in last, you could run the monster of all monsters. You're not going to catch him because He's got too far ahead. He's got too much run, and he had too much of position on you. And that would have been the story coming out of this race if like you said, if Tappa Trice would have been 8th on the turn like he was in Tampa. He wouldn't have caught him. And you saw him. He only beat Classic Car Wash by 2 lengths at Tampa. Why? Because when you're that far back, it's hard to win. But it's just that simple. It's right. But here, you round the corner and you're 3rd. And Verifine's making that move, but he's only a length or 2 ahead of you. You can go get him. And with Tappa Trice, he went and got him, and he was also goofy. He was looking in the stands for a lot of the stretch. I mean,
he was looking at me, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. It was just a really crazy stretch run. You felt like he had him the whole way, but you also felt like he was goofing around a little bit too. And that is definitely still going to be a big time worry in the Kentucky Derby, the goofing around. But look, he was much better from Tampa to here at Keeneland. I think he could be much better again. I mean, I think he's just a horse that's figuring it out. You still got to tell him pretty much step for step what he needs to do. And I think every ride, they're figuring that out. You've got a great jockey in Luis Saez. Maybe the Derby isn't the one for him. I currently have him number 1, but knowing that, hey, I could really change if we get a bad draw, something like that. But I think overall, this is the best horse. This is the horse that has the most talent. That doesn't always equate to a Derby win. There's all kinds of problems still there, but I do feel strongly that he is the most talented horse. I mentioned jockeys. One thing that's happened since I recorded the video yesterday for the top 5, Flavien Prat is going to go with Angel of Empire. And I think that is huge, right? He could have chose Kings Barnes, who everybody's pretty high on, and I'm still fairly high on him, but he chose Angel of Empire for Brad Cox. What do you think about that one?
Well, what's interesting about that too is it's different, obviously 2 hot top end trainers, but different trainers. So you kind of have, he could have, if it was both with Pletcher or whatever, it may have been some finagling there, but I think that, I think that's it's a huge indication of at least how they think Angel of Empire is doing. I'm higher on Kings Barnes than Angel of Empire, so a little bit concerned about that. I'm not necessarily, I'm not going to, he's still going to get probably, I don't know, Jose maybe or something, Kings Barnes, but not necessarily down on him. But I think the fact that I think you have to make Angel of Empire move him up a couple notches because of that.
Yeah, I do too. I had like Angel of Empire 7th and Kings Barnes 5th. I might just flip them because we kind of been saying it. It's like, hey, his decision is going to be a big one and it's going to affect everything. Now, of course, Kings Barnes might get a guy like Jose Ortiz aboard. Well, there you go, right?
And you got to think Saez he's staying put here on his Derby mount with Tappa Trice. Saw a couple comments I was trying to get to. So I think, listen, and that's what makes this so frustrating. They're so hard as we get into this. Forte is the more polished. He's the more professional. He's the most experienced. He's the one you can probably count on.
Yep.
One out of the Pletchers. But I saw all his Tappa Trice like Forte light. I kind of think Tappa Trice or Forte is Tappa Trice light. I mean, I don't believe we've said it all year. Like Forte I don't know that he's gotten better since his 2-year-old year. He just maybe didn't have to be, he just kind of running the same race as he was as a 2-year-old, and that's going to be enough. And it was all the way up until these last couple preps, I think. And you're starting to see like Tappa Trice is emerging. If you want to go the Japanese route, that horse is obviously getting a ton of steam. Kings Barnes or Angel Empire. Point is, I feel like these are starting to catch up. Whereas Forte, he's been great, and he had that Florida Derby was exciting. It still kind of gives you some concern. Is he growing into the horse that you need him to be in the Kentucky Derby?
I think it's a simple decision on Forte. I really and honestly, truly believe it's this simple, and I don't know the answer. And I think I'm going to have him on all my tickets because I don't know the answer. If you think his race in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which was very good, by the way, that exact same race is good enough to win the Kentucky Derby, you need to play him because I think that's what he is. I think he's a horse that blossomed at 2. And is staying right there with that great. And it was great. That 2-year form was great, but it's not improving. Okay. It's right there. Right.
Yeah.
If you think that race is going to be good enough to win on the first Saturday in May, you need to play him. And I'm not going to say it's not. It certainly might be. But if you think horses are improving enough to get to that where he's at, because he's kind of just been that bar, right? And they've all been below him. But if you think there's some that are rising up to that level, then you can go against him. I think that's all it is. I think that's just the easiest way to put it, right?
Yeah, he's he's going to be, 5-2 or something like that. And I just don't know how you can play him there. And I just think he's the ultimate contender for running a really good race, but just not being quite someone, whether it be Tabatrice, whether it be Angel Empire, whether it be Kingsburn, whether it be the Japanese horse, whatever it is, like whoever you like feels like one of those horses is kind of going in that direction, whereas Forte, like you said, is just now. Can he do it? Sure. I mean, he's shown that he's super talented. I just don't know that we're going to see a huge bump, which is going to be what it's going to take in order for him to win.
Yeah, I think, whatever that best race is, because his third race off a layoff and all this stuff, he should get back to where that was with that best race last year where he beat a horse in Cave Rock that everybody thought he couldn't beat. I think he can get back to that. I think he'll run that kind of race. Can anybody go get him? Can anybody, upset him? And that's why you get into these horses and it's like, well, this one's running better with each race. Forte's kind of running the same race. That's the key. And listen, I think this year more than any other year, where they draw is going to be big because Forte and Tabatrice both are going to have to come from out of it. I don't think either one of them want inside posts. If they both get inside posts, it could get really crazy.
Well, let's get on there, honey. Hang on. I do think that. Okay, so I did see a question. What price will you not play Tabatrice? That's a good question, Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, because here's the problem. He's going to be overbet too now. Because I think is a chance that you're going to have. Like, if I was just guessing right now, I'd say like 5-2 on Forte. He gets a possible chance. I mean, there's really honestly possible chance that Dermot is a second choice. I think that's a real chance.
I do too.
And then Tabatrice might be like, I think 6-1, 5-1 on Dermot, somewhere in there, and Tabatrice. I think those are where you're going to get. And then Practical Move be like fourth choice or so, 8-1 in that ballpark. When you say,
yep, I think anybody 6-1, 8-1, any of that range is fine for me on Tabatrice, assuming he draws well. And again, everything we're going to say between now and the draw, you can just add that line to the end of it, assuming the draw is fine. But I think if Tabatrice was to go lower than 6-1, that's where it's like, yeah, I'm not sure if that's the best price on him or not. But again, who actually gets into the gate is still way into debate. Where they draw, obviously, is we have no idea. So there's a lot of factors that could go into it between now and then. But yeah, 6-1 as of right now would make sense on him. I think Derma Sotogate might be like 3-1 in this race. The height the Japanese horses are getting, they're there. Derma Sotogate is already at Churchill. Wait until he works. I'm going to tell you whether that horse works terrible or not. Everybody's going to say he worked great. My prediction is Derma Sotogate will be the darling in the morning. People are going to fall in love with him. I bet he's a really, really short price.
Shoddy, he does not need candy. Okay. He's currently pissed at me because I wouldn't help him with some game on Roblox. I'm like, yeah. Anyways, listen, I think honestly, I have kind of a feeling here that part of me wants, like, he's probably with Tabatrice, like you and I talked a lot about this on our way home from Lexington. If you want, okay, if Tabatrice win, like, to me, if you look at the three races, I don't think anyone would argue Belmont. Like, if there's a horse ever made for Belmont, it's Tabatrice, right? Yeah. So, but if he were to win the Derby, then obviously they're probably going to go to the Preakness, right, with him. Mm-hmm. Fletcher obviously he has a terrible record in the Preakness, and on top of that, the Preakness is probably the worst race out of the three for Tabatrice. Mm-hmm. So, say he gets beat. Maybe he doesn't even run the Belmont at that point. And then all of a sudden, so part of me thinks, and I've said this all along with Tabatrice, like, kind of has a feeling of, oh, he's going to run like a really good but troubled fourth or something in the Derby. They skip the Preakness. Then he's like primed and ready to go in the Belmont. And that's the Belmont horse. To me, that feels like, even though I do think he can win the Derby, I think that's the most likely scenario for him.
I think the commenter makes a ton of sense. I do feel like it's a clean as hell trip and he does it, or he gets a lot of trouble. And it's like you just said, it's like he's going to win the Belmont, but he just couldn't overcome his flaws, in the Derby. I can see that for sure. Michael says, is Tapit Trice better than Essential Quality? I don't think so. And Essential Quality couldn't get it done. Well, I mean, we're going to find out. I don't think so either. But, I do think he would sit there and say, Essential Quality really didn't fire that big of a race that day. I think you look back at that and go, he was better than those three horses. He was much better than those three horses. I don't know why he didn't get it done. He rounded the corner with every shot in the world.
Just didn't have his A game.
And I also think it's a meaningless thing to think about, to be completely honest.
Do you think, do you want to talk about the Wood at all?
If you want to. I was just going to end the show after we were done with this discussion.
Hey, no, I do think I think Hit Show, I mean, do I think he's like my Derby winner? No. But I think he's a pretty good horse. I think he should have won Dreamlike. Dude, I went back and watched Dreamlike's all of his races, but like he just doesn't want to win. Like he doesn't know how to win. Clearly, he's a maiden. He should have won that race. But I do think Dreamlike I do believe Hit Show is interesting. I think he is a decent horse that could pop up and hit the board in the Kentucky Derby after kind of I think he's going to we're not going to talk about him a lot because of that Wood and how bad it was. So I do think out of that race, Hit Show is somewhat interesting to me underneath.
He's not going to be on my tickets. He's not for me. I don't want to talk anybody off of him because look, once you get past the couple, 2 or 3, anybody could hit the board. But I mean, sure, he had a rough trip, but he got beat by Lord Miles. That's where it is for me, right? Like if he was a really good horse, I think he would have won that race. And I was pretty high on him going into that race. I exited the race thinking, I don't know about him. I mean, could he hit the board? Yeah, I think so. But I think if you asked me about 15 of them, I'd say, yeah, they could hit the board, So he's kind of in that group of, if you want to use a price, go for it. But
it's definitely going to be tricky when there's a bunch of them, I feel like. I mean, it's like, I think he could hit the board. I think he could hit the board. Well, eventually we're going to have to narrow these down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So someone's not going to make the cut. I do think if there is a horse that's most likely to hit the board in the field, not shockingly, I think it's Forte. I just think he's going to run his race, and I think he's still going to be able to win or still be able to be there at the end of the race. I just don't trust him to get it done.
Yeah. But, it's going to be fun because as I got a Derby bubble horse post or a video up now where you talk about 4 horses that aren't in the race right now that probably will be, or at least some of them will be, because we'll get defections. And they might be better horses than who's in it right now with scratches and stuff. You also can affect the pace and stuff like that. So we've got a long ways to go still. 3.5 weeks to talk about this. We have the Lexington coming up this weekend. So a long ways to go right now. Everything can change when you've got a group that's this close together. Little things can make a big difference. So that's why this is going to be a tremendously fun lead up. Sometimes the lead up to the race is, well, I'm picking Justify. And then things change. It goes, well, I'm picking Justify. And so for 3.5 weeks, you just say, Justify is my pick. This year, it feels very different. With that, last question, who is your Kentucky Derby top choice as of right now, with knowing that all those other factors are still out there?
I've been all over with this one. I think Tapit Trice is my pick right now. It's very fluid. I do think there's only 2, maybe 3 horses that can win this thing. And the other one is going to shock some people. I also, for anyone that I've seen a lot of of Sun Thunder talk on here, I just want to leave you with some food for thought. Like, what about that bluegrass got you excited for Sun Thunder in the Derby? I'm not like, I'm just like curious because like I'm trying to find it. I don't see it. I think he's a fourth at best, because I think he's just going to keep coming. But no, I don't see it. But yeah, Tapit Trice is my tentative. Let me put that very clearly, tentative pick.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with Tapit Trice right now. I've got him number 1. We'll see what happens. It could definitely change day by day. This thing could change. Yeah, I see a lot of Sun Thunder love. I think he's just a real honest horse. I think people like that. I've seen some people think he can sit a little bit closer than what he's been doing, and we'll see what happens with that. I don't know. But yeah, I can't get behind him winning the race. He can lump into that. Hey, we can hit the board type. So here's why. He has not been asked in his last 2 races. So watch the replays. I know you don't watch the replays, Jared. So
yeah, I was there. I guess.
Hey, how many times have you watched the bluegrass replay?
Well, given that my favorite horse is in the race, yeah, about 1 million.
Or any replay.
I've never heard of a horse being entered in back-to-back Derby preps and then not asking them. That's new. So interesting strategy, but we'll see if it works. I think the only and Michael said it. I mean, the only it's logical, but it's illogical. The only logical reason to use him or pick him is because of one name, McPeak. That's the only one.
I think it's really odd. He seems like, to me, he has more early turn of foot than what they've done with him. That's what's weird. So I think he is a candidate to be sitting in a different spot than where he's sat in these past races. But I still don't think he's going to win. He's not really for me. But look, I mean, he's probably going to be like 40-1. So, if you want to use him, don't let me talk you off of me. All I can say is he's not going to be on my tickets. So that's at any point I just haven't seen enough to say, yeah, he's on my Derby ticket.
Yeah, he hasn't won a race since his maiden, and he did run well in the Risen Star, but finished second. I think that was a good prep race. But fourth in the Southwest, fifth in the Louisiana Derby, fourth in the Bluegrass, and that was like a non. I mean, you almost, that race, the way that the Bluegrass happened, like you almost forgot who else was in the race. It was those two, and then you're like, I don't even know who finished third and fourth. Like, who cares, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I don't take much from that. But yeah, I agree. I mean, that's all about finding those prices to try to hit the board and juice this thing up. It will be interesting to see how this is bet. Somich, I mentioned, he was talking about it on Magic Mike yesterday. Like, and I do think he's right. Like, I think you're going to have a lot of people looking for those deep long shots because of what happened last year. And so those horses will probably be overbet somewhat. And so it's going to be, if you're trying to find those horses, maybe it's not the 50-1 or 40-1. Maybe it's like in that 20, 15 to 30 range, because those will be right in the middle.
I think you're right. And I think no matter what video you post, everybody goes, yeah, but Rich Strike in the comment section.
Yeah.
Get away from that. I mean, but also, yeah, use your thought process of, I'm not just playing a long shot because it's a long shot because he won it last year. I mean, that's not a good reason. But if you like Jim Mason is high on Sun Thunder, if you think you see something in a long shot, then go ahead and do it. Just don't do it just because it's a price, because that stuff doesn't happen very often. And all of you, well, not all of you watching, but all the people that bet the long shots in the next 2 legs of the thing saw it. It doesn't happen. It's just because a horse is 30-1 doesn't mean it's going to win those big races. So, that's my word to the wise. That probably nobody that's already made up their mind that they're going to do a Rich Strike this year is going to listen to. But anyway, last thing, who's the one horse who could possibly upset the current favorites? So let's say the current favorites are like the 2 big Pletchers, and put the 3 Pletchers and the Japanese horse. Who's going to upset those horses? Who's most likely?
Oh man.
I think with the Pratt news, if Angel of Empire is like 12-1, I think he's my answer.
Yeah, it's him or King's Barnes for me, and I don't know if King's Barnes is too low.
Yeah,
of a price, but I do think it's one of those two.
A couple people saying Verifying. I do think he's going to get a really good trip.
I don't think Verifying is going to want to run that far.
Here's my counter on Verifying. If that was his race in the Bluegrass, right? And if he couldn't win that one, I don't think he's going to win the Kentucky Derby. But I do think he'll show up, and I think he will run well.
I do think and I believe me, I'm as surprised as you are probably, but if somehow Disarm can get in, I think Disarm is a little interesting just because I like the way he's been coming into the race. If he gets in, I think he could have a little bit of something to say. He could still get in.
Says Mage here. I don't think he can win. We kind of talked about him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think if he was going to win, he would have won the Florida Derby. That was a race. It looked like he had it, and he got beat. And I don't know.
The only caveat for Mage for me is if they can somehow figure out a way to get him to break, and if he breaks and gets himself in a nice position, he could be a complete wild card in the race. Just given that we don't know, that's what he did on debut, and then of course they started going 2 turns and these big stakes, and then he broke last out of the gate basically both times. So if for whatever reason, and that's the big if, but if for whatever reason he gets out there and they get into the first turn and he's in that 3rd, 4th, 5th position, all of a sudden you're like, okay, if he has that same kick, he will be tough. So yeah, I think Mage is. I'm cautiously saying no with him, but is it possible? I think it is.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. Yeah, you got to get a little bit better position if you're a horse like Mage. Think about if Verifying broke dead last. I don't know that he would be able to come with that move that Mage did. So that's good to say, hey, Mage has got a burst. He's got talent, but he really needs to be a lot closer to the face. All right, we're going to get out of here. We both like Tapit Trice as of now, but a million things could change. I don't think either one of us are sitting here, mouth watering, getting ready to bet any of these horses right now. A lot of things could change, so we will see. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here right now. We'll probably be back next week with another update. And, of course, many shows coming up this weekend, all covering the Derby, I'm sure. All right, guys, see you next time.
See you guys.
RacingDudes.com is your home for the best free picks for every race, every track across the country. We're ramping up for the 2023 Kentucky Derby, and we want you to join us in the fun. Subscribe to Racing Dudes YouTube channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a single video. Want to make money betting horses? Bet with the Racing Dudes.